go about that? How would your approach change if, talking about like a young Jerica Williams, fresh out of high school? What would you do differently as a student athlete if you have 4 years?
So I would want to disclaimer with this. Like, I don't have any regrets, right? And I always say, so if I was 18 again and I knew exactly what I knew at 18, then I would do it the same. Because you only know what you know.
Right.
If I had the knowledge I have now at 18, I would have stayed at UCLA, only because the reasons in which I transferred, I understand, were based on emotion. And I didn't have the resources at the time to help me understand kind of what was happening in the moment, right? And 18-year-old young women, we're just emotional, and I think that not that I hadn't fought through adversity before, but I hadn't faced that. So I think, especially coming out of high school when you're the best, everybody's the best, you know what I mean? Like, the best. And then you get to college and you're not the best anymore. And there's very few elite players. Like, Paige Beckers is an elite player. Like, she's elite. But I guarantee you in Paige Beckers at UConn, I guarantee you at practice, though, when she got to UConn, she saw some things she's never seen before.
Yeah.
So there's always room for people to grow. But I would have, if I had the knowledge I had now, I would see the mental toughness that I would have gained had I pushed through what I thought was supposed to be perfection, right? Like, you go into this situation and you expect it to just be all in your favor, right? Like, you expect to play a lot. You expect to know the style of play and just fit into it. You expect, your coach not to be on you about things. Like, your expectations just kind of, it slaps you in the face. And then I wasn't prepared from an academic standpoint to perform at UCLA the way that I needed to perform, because I wasn't focused and I wasn't disciplined. So when you're in situations that are very challenging, usually it's a mirror of what you can do better. And so if I had to do it again, I would sit my butt down and I would get focused and I would be disciplined and I would be in the gym and I would figure out how to catch up academically. I would have utilized my resources more instead of like, man, this is hard, and let me just be emotionally down on myself because it feels hard, And then secondly, I made the transfer decision, while it wasn't a bad decision by any means, because San Diego State taught me things that I apply in my life, tenfold as an adult. The transferring can kind of make it feel like you're quitting. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't try, you know what I mean? But then,
that's the stigma that some people try to place on transfer. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's no diss to transferring, because sometimes it's not the best fit. And I would say this to people coming into high school and going into college, where you have to do your research and figure out where you fit, right? I think people will like, oh, well, this is a good school. They have good academics. The coach wants me, okay, right? Like, but they don't do their research in okay, who's ahead of me in my position? Let me watch a lot of their games. Let me go to the high school games and see if I can fit into this style without having to change my game a ton, because my game is what my game is. It's just going to evolve, but it's going to build on what it already is. Like, you're not going to become a point guard in college, right? Like, that ship is sailed. If you're a point guard, you're going to become a better point guard. If you're a shooter, you're going to become a better shooter, but you're not going to become a new player. But I think people don't do their research. And I don't mean like, oh, hey, what's the major here? Because things evolve, like not little things like that. But as a basketball player, where do you fit? So I feel like, going back to my transferring to San Diego State, it was a basketball decision. It was very much led with basketball, which is that was what I knew at the time. of course I would have loved to have a UCLA degree, you know. It's different. It's different. But I didn't value education the same way that I do now. And then when you look at, you lead with these basketball decisions, you kind of create this habit not to be holistic, which is something that I try to instill in my players. And when I say in my players, I mean like in collaboration with their families, in collaboration with their teachers, with our principal, with, you know, like our trainers, our strength and conditioning coach, because you want to create a holistic individual. And so I think that if you want to have a focus, you want to be a master at something, right? Like you're passionate about basketball, you want to do it. I get it. But I think that people need to be mindful of like, hey, if this is what you want to do, then you need to do your research. Like totally.
Thank you, Coach. Now, you know, from the business side, you know, tell us about, you know, what motivated you to start All Jace LLC, because I really want to stress to our young viewers the importance of building their own brand and, you know, and just working on marketing themselves. So what kind of spurred you on for that?
Yeah, it was an accident. So my friend from middle school he was a hip hop artist at the time, and he wanted to you know, promote his music. And I was young. I think I was just graduating from college. And I was like, hey, I can help you do that. Like in my mind, it was like, I would know who to reach out to. Like I would know how to kind of steamroll this thing. So we were like, let's do it. And then I was doing it, and he got like 10,000 new followers in like, you know, a couple weeks. And we booked a 13 school tour in 6 weeks. Like it took off. And then when he was doing some like radio and TV interviews, he would introduce me as his publicist. And I had no idea what that was, but I was good at it. Right. And that's, I think we have to be open to just kind of doing what we love, and things will kind of take its form. But that was just a little side gem. So I got into PR, marketing, and branding on accident. Like back then, it wasn't like a major. It wasn't as prominent as it is now. It wasn't talked about like that back then.
Yeah.
Because the internet was still fairly new. I think people forget how new the internet is. Like it's not old. So then I just I ran with it. I just ran with it. It was one of those situations where if I didn't know how to do something because it was new to me, I took it on and I figured it out along the way. And like you said, I learned how to build my own brand because I had to establish myself as, you know, a publicist and a PR person. And I realized how many relationships I had just through playing basketball. And so that gave me kind of just like a leg up. Like my first basketball client was Julius Randle coming out of Kentucky, who got drafted 7th by the Lakers. But the way that it happened, I was coaching at Prestonwood Christian Academy in Dallas, and he had just graduated.
From Dallas.
Yeah. Right. He had just graduated, and our team had just won a state title. So we, you know, like it's just the network of people. Like you just you're just around people. And, you know, one of his people in his circle, you know, we were having a conversation. It was like, yeah, so what do you do? Well, you know, I do PR stuff. And it was like, oh, well, Julius needs a PR person. You know, so it kind of was just like, you kind of put yourself, like you just kind of let people know that you do it. So then I had to learn how to package it. So then it became, okay, what's your identity? What do you do? How, you know, kind of like, not how far do you want to go, but, you know, you want to be where your feet are. But I really, you know, put the thing on my back and just ran with it. And then opportunities started to present themselves. Clients started to, you know, the 7th pick in NBA draft isn't a bad first client, you know.
Not at all.
You have to, But you have to also deliver. You have to deliver. But I think, honestly, and I want to say this, it was important for me. I wasn't making a ton of money. Like, I tell people all the time, like, I worked for free for a long time. And sometimes you just have to do it. Like, you just have to do it and trust that it's going to work itself out. But I'm happy to answer any questions. So that's my like business background, but I'm happy to answer any questions about like branding and all of that stuff for athletes specifically, for sure, just based on my experience.
Yeah. So, when it comes to, for example, branding towards, let's say, like personal, like player development, what would be like a good start for someone getting into that? I'm talking about like fresh out of college. They want to be kind of like a skills development coach. What would be like 2 or 3 tips as far as getting started and getting their name out there?
Yeah. I would say, 1, don't prematurely, don't put out a bad product, right? Like think of yourself as a product and a service. I think that people don't take the time to create good marketing material, branding and marketing material. Like, I invested a lot. It took me a while to kind of get it, but I invested a lot in the beginning before I launched, right? Like, before I like made myself public. I made,
on a website or
right, exactly. Like, before I became public, like, people knew what I was doing just behind closed doors, but before I like announced it, I made sure I had a website, a specific email address where like people would know how to contact me if they had any questions. Like, my stuff was tight. And I think that people will kind of just put it out there in like a status or like a picture of themselves with a caption and be like, hey, I'm a trainer now. And it's like, okay, have you done your research? Like, who's your target demographic? Like, think of yourself as the consumer. If I'm the consumer, and I go to a website or I see this trainer and I'm like, okay, well, where can I find them? And there's nothing there. Or if something is there and it's low quality and I go to this other website and it's high quality, they may be not as great of a trainer, but appearance means a lot.
Perception is everything.
Everything. So, do your research before, do your market research before. Everything is online, right? Like, you can build a website on your own. You can, research, like, how should I brand myself? Like, there's things out there like that. But I think my one thing would be, don't prematurely put yourself out there. And then 2, you want to